Camp is a genre whose definition has been widely debated within various artistic communities, including film. My comparative study will be analyzing the use of comedy to alleviate harmful or dangerous situations in camp films, focusing on Jamie Babbitt's 1999 release But I'm a Cheerleader and Nobuhiko Obayashi's 1977 film Hausu, or House. Susan Sontag's 1964 essay Notes on Camp is attributed as bringing camp as an aesthetic sensibility into mainstream consciousness. In her definition of camp, which she admits is loose given its existence as a sensibility, she mentions that many examples of camp are things which, from a serious point of view, are either bad art or kitsch, but then adds that camp is not necessarily bad art. Rather, its hallmark is the spirit of extravagance. Sontag also mentions camp's affinity for androgyny and exaggeration. Modern film scholars take this further, adding a gay sensibility as being an important part of camp in cinema. Jack Babuccio states, "Camp is, essentially, one of the gay sensibility's highest forms of expression, defining cinematic camp as fundamentally intertwined with the gay community, though screen personalities like those of Bette Davis or Mae West, who are credited as camp performers, need not be gay." Sontag says that a seriousness that fails is the essential element of any piece of camp art. Camp is art that proposes itself seriously, but cannot be taken altogether seriously because it is too much, she says. She continues that even pieces of art which seem too self-aware to be considered camp can be effective. Successful camp, even when it reveals self-parody, reeks of self-love. Two films that reflect this dichotomy are the 1977 Japanese film House and the 1999 American film But I'm a Cheerleader. Both films handle serious subject matters in a way that is too much, allowing dangerous or harmful situations to be alleviated through the use of comedy as a form of camp. House, directed by Nobuhiko Obayashi, used boundary-breaking, experimental, surrealist techniques to create a cult horror comedy that stood out from the Pinkuega, or pink film, popular in Japan at the time of its release. These films were essentially exploitation films that included sexual content or nudity. While House does play into the tropes of the Pinkuega, it subverts them by using the nudity and sexualized content as a vehicle for the film's terror. Another genre, Jitsurokueiga or actual history films, was likewise gaining popularity. A stark contrast on the Pinkuega, they were known for gritty and realist portrayals of violence in Japan. Thus, in a way, Obayashi combined the Pinkuega framework with the horror of Jitsurokueiga films. House follows a group of young girls as they travel to Gorgeous, one of the girls' aunt's house, and are murdered one by Auntie and her cat companion Blanche. Only Gorgeous herself remains in the end, but takes on the evil spirit, presumably becoming the next host to inflict pain unto others. According to Obayashi himself, the film portrays intergenerational conflict between Auntie, who experienced the traumas of World War II, and the girls who were born too late to experience such traumas, reflecting a deep divide in Japanese culture today over how to remember the past. Despite this heavy theme, the film fits the camp genre in its seriousness that cannot be fully realized because of its extravagance. This is especially true in its editing, which borders on, and often leans into, being comical. Its camp nature is indeed found in its self-parody, playing on the viewer's expectations of Pinkuega films. Likewise, But I'm a Cheerleader covers the serious topics of homophobia and conversion therapy through a camp comedic lens. Despite its explicitly queer narrative, the plot and character details are similar to teen romantic comedies of the time, including Gil Junger's 10 Things I Hate About You. The film focuses on Megan, a teen girl who has been sent to gay conversion camp and develops a romance with Graham, another camper, as they go through the various steps to become straight. They end up ditching the program and running away together with the help of two ex-conversion campers. Unlike a multitude of queer films spanning across genres, But I'm a Cheerleader ends happily, without any villainization or killing off of queer characters, reinforcing the message that it is not queer people who need to change their identities, but rather those who do not accept them as they are. This theme also includes the gay sensibility in this fashion, a part of camp art. This film's camp qualities can be found in its treatment of the trauma of conversion camp as something so overly extravagant and bright that it becomes comical. Even in the satire of the film, the self-parody, there is again a self-love recognized through the genuine treatment of the queer characters and their storylines, despite the goofiness of it all. One primary vehicle of camp used in both films is stereotypical characters, representing the artifice that is essential to camp art. In House, each character is named after their essential trait. Gorgeous is beautiful and cares greatly about her looks, Fantasy daydreams about a male teacher, Melody is musically inclined, Kung Fu is sporty and strong, Prof is a nerd, Sweet is kind and homely, and Mac is called fat and always seen eating. Similarly, in But I'm a Cheerleader, the teens at the conversion camp fit queer stereotypes. Jan is a softball player, Sinead is goth, Joel is Jewish and cites his circumcision as turning him gay, Graham is masculine and rebellious, Andre is feminine, Doth is a wrestler, Clayton says his mom letting him play in her pumps made him gay, and Hillary says being at an all-girls boarding school made her a lesbian. Main character Megan subverts stereotypes, capitalizing on the audience's preconceived notion that cheerleaders represent wholesomeness rather than lesbianism. Both films use these stereotypes to exaggerate the large element of artifice present in all camp objects and persons, according to Sontag. They are used to bring light to the ridiculousness of these stereotypes at the time, with gays and lesbians in the case of But I'm a Cheerleader, and women, especially girls, in House, being lumped into rigid categories of existence by media and society as a whole. The films thus use these stereotypical characters to provide comic relief for the serious topics and discussions underlining their content. The editing of the films also cements their existence within the camp genre and contributes to their comedy. In But I'm a Cheerleader, this is more consistent, with a description of each step in becoming straight appearing on the screen as the film goes on. The film also includes slow motion and flashback sequences which play on stereotypical rom-com tropes of romantic realization, using comedy via editing to bring light to a situation which is not light at all on paper, realizing you're gay and falling in love with someone of the same gender in an unsafe environment. In doing so, it uses camp as not only suitable to convey queer theory's deconstructionist ideas, but also as a way for directors to set their films visually apart from mainstream productions, something Babbit indubitably achieves through her film's editing. The editing of House, on the other hand, is a lot more varied and jolting in its frequency. There are numerous cuts and transitions that detract from its realism, even before the fantastical house comes into play, through these transitions' nonsensical use of time and visuals to transition between scenes. Once they arrive at the house and get picked off by Auntie, the visual methods of the murders epitomize the extravagance of camp, with the girls being decapitated yet their heads remain alive, attacked by mattresses, eaten by pianos, becoming dismembered in a kaleidoscope of visuals, or drowning in Blanche's blood. Despite the heavy reality that these girls are being murdered by Auntie, the length and absurdity of these scenes do not allow these matters to be taken seriously by the audience, encapsulating the nature of camp. House includes a multitude of additional surprising editing choices. There are too many different techniques included to mention them all. As an example, the combination of animated and practical effects is often used, as well as edits that seem almost unintentional in their absurdity, like a skipping record effect or a comedic amount of switching between two similar angles. While these editing choices are quick and seemingly inconsequential in terms of plot or theme, they add to the camp quality of the film and provide needed comic relief amid the stress of the murders. While the editing of House functions as the film's primary camp element and source of comedy, But I'm a Cheerleader particularly hones in on set design as a way to provide these. In general, the highly stylized, bright sets and costumes used in the film enforce the absurdity of heterosexual norms, poking fun at their strictness while contrasting with the traditional and realistic view of conversion therapy. The bright pinks and greens of the sets in True Directions contrast with the gritty reality of conversion therapy, providing comic relief to the situation Megan and the others find themselves in. The vibrant pinks and blues of the uniform costumes correspond to the gender of each individual, serving as a constant reminder of their alleged gender disconformity which must be corrected. This ultimately gives the conversion therapy program an air of lightheartedness, becoming too extravagant or absurd for it to be taken seriously. This is shown in the activities the teens have to perform on their journey to becoming straight, which, through set design, end up having homoerotic undertones. For example, the boys have to learn how to fix a car, fight, chop wood, and play football, all while surrounded by phallic imagery masquerading as normal set pieces. Once some members of True Directions escape to the house of Lloyd and Larry, self-proclaimed XX gays, the house is stereotypically decorated with rainbows everywhere, cementing the set design as camp. Though minimal, House also utilizes set design to create meta or intertextual elements, a foundation of camp. For instance, while the girls are on the train to Auntie's house, a horror movies magazine can be seen on the seat in front of them, foreshadowing how the movie will go down. Both films also use specific choices regarding shot type to their advantage to create comedy among their darker themes. In House, Auntie is constantly framed in a close-up, alone and centered, often breaking the fourth wall to smile or otherwise gesture directly to the camera. In doing so, Obayashi creates a sinister tone around her while also inviting a sense of whimsical comedy in the absurdity of her actions. Gorgeous is framed apart from the group as well, inviting parallels to be made even before it is clear that Gorgeous is taking on her aunt's vengeful mission in the end. Unlike this strict frame blocking, in But I'm a Cheerleader, POV shots from Megan's perspective are used, intentionally disorienting the viewer to show Megan's own confusion with her new scenario. This includes both the intervention scene and when Hillary shows her around the True Directions house. The latter adds to the comic relief of the film, as it frames the program as an outlandishly colored boot camp. Intentionally disorienting shots like that of Megan calling her parents add to this, as viewers cannot take the serious subject matter that seriously when the relative sizes of the characters are so outlandish. Clearly, both films portray the spirit of extravagance essential to camp through their stereotypical characters, editing, shot types, and set design. They capture the artifice and unserious nature of camp art, even when dealing with serious subject matters like murder, intergenerational conflict, homophobia, and conversion therapy. Obayashi himself said in an interview with Japan Society NYC, "To transform unlucky into lucky is the secret to filmmaking," which is exactly what these directors have done. Transformed emotional, harmful situations into comedy by incorporating camp elements into their films.